we're going to delete the power steering from the 240. So once the rack came off the car, the first thing I wanted to do was remove the valve body cover, and that involved removing the 3 bolts on it, and then once that comes off, the valve body cover actually just slides off once you grab it. And there it is. It's going to have a small race bearing inside of there. Now with that out of the way, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to pull the valve body out, and you'll notice that there's going to be a small metal washer in there. Be careful, it bends very easily. And there's the valve body with the metal washer and the Supra. Once that's done, I like to remove the outer tie rods. And then I will remove the boots. They're going to be a little tough. Just got to pull a little bit. Don't rip them though. Then I'll inspect it, make sure it's not dry rotted, no cracks, because we don't want leaks later. Then I'm going to straighten out the inner tie rod. I'm going to use 2 crescent wrenches, one on the table, creating a force so it doesn't spin on me, and then I'll just remove it. And it does take a lot of turns. Next thing we're going to do is remove this end cap. So I put this in a vise because I could not get enough torque to turn it without it flipping all over the table. And then once that's off, you just slide the rack out. It's going to be a little bit tough because you've got the piston as well as a seal in there. And once it's out, you'll see all the teeth on the rack there. Lay that off to the side. And now it's empty. So the piston that's inside on the rod, I went ahead and cut some slits into it, so that way there's no pressure when I turn it once it's back inside. And the grease I put in there will be able to move freely back and forth within the rack. Then I grease it up really good. And I slide it back in, and then once it's down, I go ahead and do a test to make sure you can slide in and out easily. And we can. So I'll put the seal back on. I slide in just to where it meets. And then I take the bushing, the little inner bushing that goes inside there, grease it up real good. I set it in. And then take the valve body with the metal washer to try not to bend. I put it right back in there, and I want to make sure that the teeth line up there. I think it's the rack and the pinion is what it's called. Make sure it's all lined up and it turns, and then I turn it by hand, make sure the rack moves, and once it does, I take the valve body cover, try to line the valve body cover back up, and then once it's on, I just slide it in there, and then I'll be able to take the 3 bolts I took out earlier, put them back in, and tighten them up. So there's the 3 bolts again, tightening them down now. This is aluminum. And then the cap, I'm going to put it back on. And once that's back up, I'm going to put the inner tie rod in. Now what I don't record here is me putting the boots back on, but you just slide them back on, use a zip tie, tighten them up on the rack. And then I have some new polyurethane bushings I'm going to slide on, and then I'll go on the car when I'm done. What I didn't record was me putting the outer tie rods back on, but you get the gist of how that works. And this is how the final thing will look after it's cleaned up. And these are all the parts I left over after deleting the power steering. And this is how it looks once it's back in the car. We'll see how it drives here in a few.
Okay, so here we are. We just got done putting the power steering rack back in the car after we did the manual conversion, removing the pulley and all the lines and whatnot, and then taking a cutting wheel to the inner piston of the steering rack and pinion. And after now we got the car back on the ground, wheel lug nuts and everything all has been tightened. We have in a parked area here in the garage, car is off. Let's see how it is. Not a whole lot of fuss and fight. I can almost do it one-handed as well. Whereas had I just removed the pump by itself and left all the lines and not cut up the piston, pretty sure I won't be able to do that with one hand. And I mean, it's relatively easy, as I have two hands here from a dead stop. I have two 25 wide tires on the front, so I'd say this was a success.